What's happening? Welcome back to another episode of the Account for Life podcast. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about and looking at the missing link between free and freedom. Now, here's how I came up with this, and here's where this came from. Some years ago, I wrote down an acronym, and it was freedom, and I was trying to pretty much live my life in a way that I could personally have freedom. Like, is anybody looking for freedom, wanting to have it, like really want to dominate? And so I created this acronym for freedom, which led me into state of mind. And here's the state of mind that it led me into. Man, because I have freedom, I am now faith fit, right? What is faith fit? We'll get into the faith fit. Freedom is, forgetting the past, renewing your mind, exercise your body, empower others, discipline your actions, offer yourself a new life and manage everything like your life depends on it. That was my acronym for freedom. But then it brought me to a question today. I said, man, what are people thinking about? Are you considering what freedom is to you? Right? Because freedom, if you've heard this term, you probably heard it. Freedom ain't free. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the instances where free and freedom are in the Bible. I went to ChatGPT just to kind of skip the line and just find out some things really quick about these two phrases. But we're really going to round this in on really what God has given us and what Jesus came to give that gave us freedom. All right. So look, when I went to ChatGPT, I asked ChatGPT, I says, hey, how many times, give me all the instances where the word free or the word freedom is mentioned. Now, ChatGPT, what it says, I saw it kind of going through its thing. It's like, well, I may overwhelm the user if I show him everything, but we're just going to let him know where everything, like how many there is. So ChatGPT comes back, and here's what ChatGPT gives me about these two words. It says that free is mentioned 521 times in the Bible. That's across the, Old and New. And freedom is mentioned 66 times across the Old and New. Now, Old Testament accounts for 293. New Testament accounts for 228. So free and freedom is being mentioned all through the Bible. Why? Okay, let's go all the way back. We got to go all the way back for this one because remember when we came to this place, when we were born, like when Adam was born, what did Adam have? Was Adam free? No, Adam had freedom. Adam was free to do what he wanted. Adam was free to partake of everything that this life had to offer until, say with me today, until he decided he wanted independence. Ooh, that's an interesting term. Now, it doesn't say that in the Bible. It's just that we can correlate independence with freedom, right? Because right here in the United States, there's an Independence Day. There's Independence Days in other countries, other islands, because people wanted to have their freedom, but they needed to be independent from the government. Ooh, they need to be independent from the government. And because they needed to be independent from the government, what happens when you are independent from your source? Okay, well, you no longer have what the source has to offer. So Adam, if you go all the way back, Adam decided, unbeknownst to him, it sounds like, he didn't know what he was getting into, that he would have his freedom by declaring independence. And independence is basically saying, you know what, I like to make my own decisions. I don't want to have to listen to what you have to say. I just want to do it myself. I'd like to be able to make my own mistakes. Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever said that when you was growing up? I want to make my own mistakes, Mom and Dad. You can't rule me. Oh, man. See, you see where this is coming from? So in our culture, we've been culturized to have freedom through independence. True freedom does not come with independence. True freedom comes with dependence. And that dependence gives us something that independence cannot give us. We're getting there. So Adam was born. He had it all, declared freedom. What did Adam have? What did God give him? God gave Adam the kingdom. He gave him the keys. He gave him the whole earth. Hey man, you can have the earth. You can do what you will. You can multiply on the earth. You must subdue the earth and dominate the earth. The fish, the birds, the trees, the creatures, dominate the earth. But said nothing about dominating your fellow man. Dominate the earth, dominate creation. This is what Adam got. So when we think about what is the missing link between free and freedom, it's kingdom. Kingdom is missing because D-O-N, dom, comes from the word kingdom, and the word kingdom is multiple words. It's king, dominion. King and dominion. So that's what kingdom is. And so if Adam was given a kingdom, then what was Adam? Adam was a king. I posted one of my walking videos on social media maybe a day or so ago. And when I was walking, I was like, man, I have to share a story. And here's a story I shared. I went to watch the movie Superman last weekend. Someone wanted to see it. I said, let's go watch it. So we go see Superman. Wasn't really interested, but I just went just for the sake of entertainment, whatever. And so I'm watching Superman, just kind of going with the thing. And I didn't really like it per se because they made Superman look weak. But here's what stuck out to me. Superman has all this power, right? He has dominion. He can dominate, because he's super. But if Superman is put in the wrong environment, kryptonite, Superman can pretty much die. Now, once Superman gets out of that environment, the only way Superman can come back to life as Superman is Superman needs one thing. Here's what Superman needed. He needed access to the sun. It says, wow, that's really interesting that they put in the movie that the sun was the most important power, the most important thing that powered Superman. Without the sun, he has no power. Don't you think that was put, well, for me, it was put in there for a purpose. It was put in there just so that we would know that the sun itself gives us power. And so I took away from that. I says, wow, the sun is so needed in our life that the sun gives us this dominion that we all are looking for. We all want freedom, right? But here's the thing. Yeah, like I said, freedom's not free. And to have dominion is to find ourselves in the right environment. We got to be in the sun. Like, look, I'm going to go for a walk after this is over. We got to be in the right environment where we can get the right material so that we can become who we need to become. So, because free is just like, that's with the training wheels. Like when you are free, when you are set free, the Israelites were set free. And when they were set free, they had no dominion. They had no kind of dominion. They were basically just wandering, we're free. What do we do now? They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to live. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know how to get to where they were going because they had to learn what kingdom was. They had to learn how to actually get back in this dominion state. Sadly, that group of people really never experienced any of that. And that's rightfully so, because they weren't ready. They weren't ready for full dominion. Now, a few people may have experienced themselves. Moses experienced it. Joshua experienced it. a few people experience kingdom and dominion, but not everybody. But that's why when we fast forward into the New Testament, when we're talking about freedom, Jesus didn't come talking about freedom. Now, he said he would set the captives free, but his message was only about the one thing. What was it? Kingdom. I must preach the kingdom to of the good news all throughout the land, is what he said. He must preach the kingdom. He says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has arrived. The kingdom of heaven is at hand in Matthew 4:17. And that was his only message. The kingdom, the kingdom, the kingdom. He started working with, some of these guys that had the background, they come from Jewish background. He started working with these guys, teaching these guys about the kingdom, teaching these guys how the kingdom works. And it took them a while. It took them a few years to figure it out. It took him leaving, even though at some point he gave them the kingdom. He gave them the dominion that they always wanted. They was able to cast out devils. They was able to raise people from the dead. They was able to preach the good news because he gave it to them. He showed them what true dominion looked like. See, God is calling each and every one of us into dominion. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Many of us are seeking free and freedom, meaning we want something for free. We won't have to do anything. And we want to be able to have freedom and independence. I remember being an independent guy. You grow up, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to get out of my parents' house. I wanted to be able to, kind of like do the things that, that I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to invite my girls over any time of night. I wanted to be able to go out and come anytime I wanted to. I wanted to be able to just run my own life. And I'm going to tell you, when I look back on being free, I made some of the worst decisions while I was free. While I had my quote unquote independence, some of the worst decisions ever came from being independent. So it wasn't until one day, I remember one day, one day you hear God calling you, and I was in this particular office, it was around 2014, maybe somewhere in there. I can't even remember because, when you're born again, you don't even remember how you became born again. I just remember the moment. The moment was I was fed up. I was frustrated and I was ready for change. And I just cried out, Lord, just what would you like me to do? How can I experience this kind of life where I don't have to worry about anything? And he says, give it all to me. Become my slave. Yeah, but Paul talks about this, I believe, in 1st and 2nd Corinthians, that when we have freedom, when we are set free, we become bond servants to the king. We then become a bond servant. What does it mean? We're still a servant, even though we are little kings. So when I gave my life that day without a sermon, without the music, without any emotion coming in, my whole life changed. I gave up my independence. I decided I'd be, I'm better off in this thing called the kingdom than I am being independent, because independence has gotten me to a place where I just couldn't understand where I was going. Once I accepted the kingdom, right? When you accept the kingdom, what's so crazy is that you wind up doing things that most people do not understand. Most people think you're crazy. Most people look at you like, man, I don't know how you did that. And I remember I accepted the kingdom, and for some reason, the Lord is calling on me to says, you know what, you and your wife, you guys need to do something. And I'm going to ask you to ask her to leave her job. See, here's the thing. When you become independent, you become dependent. So here it is. I'm no longer independent. In my independent state, I would have never done that. But in my dependent state, he says, ask your wife to leave her job, have a conversation with her. She's going to leave. We have this conversation. She says yes because I don't know what I said. I quoted a scripture and she says, well, if you say it that way, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. And she did it. So in that dependence, we found freedom. Because what happened was all of a sudden she could have her freedom to live. She didn't have to get up and go down and get up so early when she had to get into the traffic. She had to come home in traffic, and she's always tired and she's constantly just like complaining about the job, and she didn't have to deal with that anymore because we were now dependent as kings. See, even though when God calls us into the kingdom, he makes us a king, we are still dependent to the king. Say that again. Even though he calls us as a king, he makes us a king over domain, we're still dependent to the king. We're just little kings. We're just little kings in our little domains, and everyone gets a domain to dominate. Everybody gets one. What is dominate? Listen, if we're going to have freedom, and this is where the acronym comes in, it's perfect for this. If we're going to have freedom, whatever happened in the past, we got to forget it. That's the first thing. We got to forget the past, because the past, unless we are using the past as a mechanism to help us, then we must discard everything else. So the only thing that we bring forward from the past is empowering thoughts. Then when we have forgotten the past and we renew our mind, what is mind renewal like? It says in Romans, do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, renewing in this case, it's kind of like in construction. When you go, there's a house that needs some work to be done on it, and you go in to renovate it. What do you do when you renovate a house? You pull everything out. All the old stuff is coming out: the flooring, the walls, all the old fixtures, all the all the stuff that made the house, except for the structure. You keep the structure is going to stay up, but we're just going to go inside and pull out all of the messed up stuff, and then we're going to come back in and replace it. So when we renew our minds, we got to get rid of all the old stuff. That's why we had to renew. So now in the renewing, we're putting new stuff in. Dependency is going in, right? Because I must be dependent on the king. This idea that God has given me a whole domain, a whole area. God has given me a gift. God has given me a purpose. God has given me opportunity that didn't have before. Place all that new stuff in. That's how you renew your mind. Then it's the exercise. See, exercise is exercise your body. It's exercise, it could be exercise how you think. It's exercise, different things that you're doing, but exercise is the preparation point, like exercise. But I'm going to say this, I'm going to insert this: exercise your body, because when you can put your body under your control, right? We need to be in control of our bodies. When you put your body under your control, you have a better opportunity of making it through the hard times. When we're not in control of our body, and then things get crazy, we'll start doing stuff that don't make any sense. We'll start eating things, doing things, and acting out. So we want to get control of our body by exercising and doing things that puts the body into submission. Secondly, empower. See, how can you be free if no one else is? That's whack. Here it is. I was working by myself in my office, and I'm so glad that I empowered my wife in order to take part in what I was already doing. See, I came out of the matrix, and started the business and didn't go back into the matrix. She was still in there, but I called her out. Lord allowed me to call her out. She listened, she came, and now she was empowered. She became empowered with, wow, this is a different life. Yeah, there's some benefits to having a job, but there's more benefits to not having a regular job, because now we get more control over the things that we're doing. Have no control when you're dependent to someone else. We only want to be dependent to the King, our King. So empower someone else to move forward. Now, this is where it gets really challenging, because it's actually it's not as hard to be free, but it gets a little more challenging to have freedom. Here's the big D: discipline. Discipline. What is discipline? What does that really mean? The root word of discipline is disciple. Oh. And I've heard stories about the Bible and how basically, if the Bible, like the disciples were all disciplines. I think it was Reverend Ike who goes through this. I can't remember the teaching 100%, but I do remember he talked about how the disciples are meanings of disciplines about how we must discipline ourselves. So we must become a disciple, disciplined to how we are living our life, to how we are working our businesses, to how we are being a family man, being a husband, being a wife, being a friend, being a brother, a father, like to being a mother. We have to have discipline to that, because without discipline and regimen, when I talk about just traditions here, without discipline and regimen, without becoming a disciple, you won't get freedom. You won't have it, or you won't have it very long. Because the moment you fall out of your routines, the moment you fall out of being a disciple is the moment you start to lose the dominion. Because you won't have dominion without discipline. So that's discipline. Offer. We're going to offer ourselves. We're going to look at our life and we're going to say, well, this is where I've been, but you know what? What's my dream? Right? So now I offer myself my own dream, the dream that God gave me. And the thing about a dream is that all dreams are real. Let's say that again. All dreams are real. If you had a dream to be somewhere, go somewhere, or do something, or have something, if you saw it, it's real. The Bible says that. The Bible says the things that do appear are not as real than the things that don't appear. So the things that are invisible are more real than the things that are visible. So your dream, offering yourself a new life. I'm talking about a big life. I was just on a call yesterday. I was on a call with somebody. How much money they wanted to make, and they just gave me some lazy number, 100,000, 150,000. I'm like, okay. I said, so if there was no obstacles, and there was, and you could do it, how much? Oh, $1 million. Oh, $1 million. And person starts to actually shed tears now. Got emotional, because once they knew there was not saying there's not going to be obstacles, but we got to first go into the dream, to live the dream first. So I got to offer myself a brand new life, something that is big, and it gets me emotionally involved. I think I was in a workshop, and basically what the workshop was teaching yesterday is that your feelings, how you feel about something, is going to drive the whole thing. Because you could, in your conscious mind, be talking about, oh, I want to do something, but the feelings that you have about it on the inside don't match the fact that you're saying that you want to do something. I've lived this life where I said I want to do this, but the feelings I had about it, I wasn't doing it. So how we feel about something is 100%, it's the key. So, but we have to first see the dream, offer it to ourselves. Don't ask yourself if you're worthy of it, because you are worthy of it. If you thought of it, if it's in your mind, that's yours. No one else has that. So it's the dream that will make everything work. Offer it to yourself. No one else gets to tell you what your dream is. You get to tell you what your dream is. Lastly, God places on the earth to manage. In Genesis 2, I believe 5, it says that there was no man to work the ground, so God did not allow anything to grow. He needed someone to manage. And until he had his plan together for someone to manage, he didn't make anything. So God created us to manage and rule over what he's given us. So you got to manage your life. You got to manage your dream. You got to manage everything like your life is actually depending on it every day. There's days when I don't want to go to the gym. There's days when I don't want to do a podcast. There's days when I don't want to empower anybody. There's days when I just feel like, but here's the thing, I still got to do it. Because that's the part of my management. That's the part of the gift. That's the part of what God has given me. He says, this is yours. You don't do anything for the money, but you do everything for the purpose. And the purpose is the reason for your life. So management is how we round out freedom. And it's not independence, guys. It's being fully dependent on the King so we can reign as kings over our assignment and over the territory that God's given us. So the missing link between free and freedom, it's not independence. It's the kingdom, becoming a king, learning what your assignment is, learning what dominion is all about, living your life accordingly, living the dream that God has placed in your heart, and allowing yourself to be fully dependent on who he is so that you can now go out, empower, help, and give. Help somebody else find their freedom. So guys, I hope you got value from this episode today. Jane, the Healthy Accountant here, helping you to account for your life. God bless you. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
This has been the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore. Until next time, make it a great day.